Cool. All right, I'll just do a real quick introduction of myself and where you're at. So, like Brent's already on the on the sharing as well. So welcome everybody. My name's Will Weber. I'm a solution engineer here at Microsoft. I work in the cloud data and AI space and have been at Microsoft now for going on 10 years. So that's been a lot of fun. You're in the now what's called the Innovation Hub, where we are going to be trying to do these BI user groups every quarter or so. I think is the current plan, or if we get real industrious, maybe it's every 2 months. We'll find out in the future here. And we've got a board that's been sort of recently populated with some new folks to help drive stuff forward. We're always looking for new folks to participate for both presentations, participating in the board, all of that stuff. I think more hands that are there, the easier it is for us to organize, find folks to come and hang out and talk to us and all of that fun stuff. So feel free to reach out to anybody on this list, either directly in the room or via email or through the invites and blasts that you guys are getting for new events that are coming up if you have any questions. So I guess with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brent for some additional intro stuff. And if you have any questions, I'll be here the whole time and can chat afterwards as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Will. All right, give me a shout if you can't hear me online. I'll try to project appropriately. But yeah, we always start out going through sort of what's new since the last time we met. So we met mid-May. Kind of the big news, which it's kind of all over the place right now, but Power BI 10 years. So hooray. So credit to whoever that user is that I found that created this. They actually made kind of a cool Power BI 10-year report that's out there. So I searched that person. It's kind of fun.
Wasn't John Copilot?
No, well, I knew FBI was involved in that somewhere there. But this week there's a live episode of Guy in a Cube. Not totally sure what they're going to do with it, but I've got a link up here shortly. But you can join that, check it out. They've always got some good stuff. 50% off Power BI and Fabric certifications. I think you can get a voucher through the end of the summer. So yeah, I typically tell people don't ever pay full price for one of those, because if you pay attention, there's lots of vouchers that come out for that. So look into that if you are looking to take any of those tests. And oops, went the wrong way. There we go. There's the short URL. So if you jump out there, you'll see the Guy in the Cube link, and then there's a couple other things going on around the 10-year. So some fun stuff going on. All right, so jumping into the new stuff. So the first one I got queued up here, organizational themes. So what this lets you do is load your theme directly in the Power BI service. So, in the past, you had to pull this in at the report level, or you may have developed a PBIT file that pulled this detail in there. But now you can drop it right out there in the service. You can see it lives in the admin portal. There's organizational themes. So I've got a couple that we loaded up into our test environment. From there, you can choose whether to make it available to the theme gallery. And if you do that, you can see in the lower right there, in your Power BI desktop, you'll get a new organizational themes header, and your themes that you load will show up. So check that out. I was just testing it right before the meeting, and my theme disappeared, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But as with all things preview, yeah, exactly. Your mileage may vary, but it did show up at one point. So, so the plumbing is there, just maybe not quite connected. But you can also, when you upload these out there, you can designate a particular theme for Copilot use. So if you go in and auto-generate a report, now instead of getting that kind of harsh original Power BI theme, you can get one that's got your organization colors. If you get really fancy, you can get some graphics in there, but yeah, check that out. So pretty cool, nice way to make sure that your reports all have the same unique look and feel. It will not retroactively apply to anything that's out there, just because they don't want to break anything. But once you have it, you can, go in and access your report, apply defaults, do that kind of stuff to apply your themes to existing reports. So stay tuned on that one. Copilot. So speaking of Copilot, a lot of kind of new bells and whistles have come out since we met last, but standalone Copilot experience is out there now. So if you enable this in your tenant, you'll see over on the left-hand side there, right beneath the home button, you get that little Copilot logo. From there, you can jump in and you can see in the middle, I should have zoomed in a little more, I guess, but you can not only search and find things in your tenant there, you can also get summaries of existing reports. You can ask questions about your data from your data models. And as you go through these, down below there in the search box, you see that plus add items for better insights. You can point it to a particular model, to a particular report. So there's some ways that you can sort of curate what's going to come out of there. There's also improved answer generation from reports now. So there were some changes made under the hood, kind of throughout the whole year. I think there's been some incremental changes, but before it would just look at your model and measures and try to generate some output. Now, if you're coming at it from a report, it's going to look at the analysis you've already done in the report first. So if you're in that report experience and you ask a question of your data, it's going to look at the visuals you've chosen, the measures you're using. It's going to use those things first. So in theory, that should mean you get better output right off the bat when you start prompting. I know chatting in the room here, that's maybe not the case for everyone, but give it a try. I mean, it's you kind of got to poke at it and find out what makes it click. And as you do that, you'll start to realize where there might be gaps in your model, or maybe you need to add some additional metadata, whether it be descriptions, synonyms, that kind of stuff. So some good stuff to dig through. You can also limit that Copilot search to be prepped content only. So there's some admin settings around all this that you can use to further fine tune what's going to show up for your users. The prep data for AI, this came out, I think, as part of the May update, so right after we met last time. But there's kind of three components to it. I have not myself spent a lot of time with this, but you've probably noticed the button pop up in Power BI Desktop. It pops up in the service depending on what view you're in, but there's a few things that you can do. So verified answers directly on a visual, you can go in and say, if somebody asks this question, use this to generate the response. So you can kind of put some breadcrumbs there for your users if you know there's going to be common questions. The AI data schema, you can go in and actually tell it fields to ignore. So you can say, use this, this, and this, but this means nothing. Don't use it. Ignore it. So I've done some testing myself, and I think if you hide fields too, then Copilot's less likely to use them to generate. But I don't know if that's legit or if I'm just making it up. But in any case, it's more tooling out there to help you make sure that those models are giving the data back to your users that you intend. So a lot of good stuff. Check it out. Take a look at the admin panel if you haven't been in there for a while. Quite a few new settings that have dropped in around Copilot and AI. Next one. So this one I'm pretty excited about. Been messing with it quite a bit. I wish it had a better name. I don't even want to say it out loud anymore. I've been abbreviating it TTFs with my team. So who knows, maybe we can have a contest to rename them. But this brings that ability to run your Fabric user data functions using Power BI buttons and the new visuals. So the new list slicer, button slicer, those are the two we've used the most, I think. But yeah, so with these, you can create that function out in the service. Right from your report, you can feed some sort of parameters to that input, run it through your function, and then write data back to your source. So you get down at the bottom there. I think they're doing some sort of a discount or something, to open opportunities. We've done a couple demos around like doing commentary on like sales orders or invoices, whatever it may be. Doing actual math on your table, so like this discount example, but there's a lot of ways you can do it. If you get out there and search, the community's got a ton of just function examples that exist out there. So some pretty cool stuff you can build in, but a lot of this you had to do before using either Power Platform elements or potentially paid add-ons for Power BI. So it's kind of nice to see some of it come right in-house to Fabric, just build using those native tools. Yeah. So some other just kind of miscellaneous quick Power BI updates. Field parameters are now GA. So I think it's been a 3-year journey or so for field parameters, but they are now generally available. Same thing for Spark lines, which I think those were in preview even longer. So good news, that preview list is going to be a little smaller when you get into Power BI, but I'm sure it's getting smaller in advance of new things showing up on there. So fun things there. Direct link models, you can now create and edit from Power BI Desktop. So that is an exciting addition. Got a lot of buzz at FabCon. A lot of updates to visual calculations. So this is one that's on my to-do list to kind of revisit. But there's been some improvements around the authoring and IntelliSense, a lot around formatting and doing conditional formatting with them. So definitely check that out. You can now do these in the Explore view. So if you go to a model in the service and go to Explore, you can create these out there as well. So if you're just again, exploring, looking at your data, and you just want to do some kind of quick calculations. Pretty cool way to do it, and just get an idea if your data is going to do what you think it's going to do. You can also paste lists of values into the new list and button slicers now. So I know in the past, I think we talked about it at one of these meetings, but a lot of times you had to use like third-party visuals that you had to pull in to paste a list of values and filter your report page. Now you can do it right natively with those new list and button slicers that are out there. So there's a couple good blog posts that are out there. I think Dan English locally, I think he did a blog post or something when it first came out. So if you're connected with him, check out his LinkedIn post, but he's got a pretty good example of how to enable that and use it. And then Tyndall View. So the improved IntelliSense formatting, quick fix suggestions, they just little kind of quality of life improvements keep coming out for that view. I've been starting to use that one quite a bit myself, and I know we're going to hear a little more about it today, but if you haven't checked that out, take a look. If you're doing any kind of Power BI development at scale, there's obviously going to be something in there that's going to save you time, save you effort, and just help you repeatable, use your repeatable code and those kinds of things. So. And then Direct Lake plus import models. So this is another one, got a lot of buzz at FabCon. You can do it today using some of the external tools. I don't think you can do it directly from the interface, but more to come on that one. Gives you a lot more flexibility in how you build those models and kind of can blend your data depending on what it is, where it's coming from. Okay, jumping over to Fabric. So Fabric mirroring got quite a few updates. So on-prem mirroring for 2016 to 2022 support is out there in preview. 2025 is there as well. There's some functional differences to that, but check out the blog posts if that applies to you. But that's a big one. I know that's one that we've been waiting for. Azure SQL Managed Instance Mirroring via private endpoints is available again. So check that one out. And the mirroring for the on-prem is now available in all Fabric regions. So there were some limitations before. It's expanded to everywhere. Data flows Gen 2, a couple updates. CI/CD is now GA. The ability to pass parameters from Data Factory pipelines to data flows Gen 2 is now in preview. That's another one. I haven't done it myself, but I know it's come up in a couple of scenarios. So I've got that one flagged to revisit. And you can also now write a file back to SharePoint. So I have a mostly hate relationship with SharePoint personally. Just my opinion, but interacting with Fabric and Power BI to SharePoint has been a challenge in the past. So having it there as a destination option, if you do need to write a file back, it's nice to have some of that kind of connective tissue becoming a little easier to use, a little easier to configure. So check that one out if you have a use case there. Notebooks, so there's a ton of those in Fabric. Variable libraries are now out there in preview. So if you have reusable variables across your environments, you can define them in one spot and pull them in as needed. Copilot inline code completion is out there as well. So I haven't had a chance to dabble with this one too much, but if you're kind of a novice around PySpark, Python, any of that good stuff, kicking on Copilot can really help you accelerate your learning and just help you get operational code in place faster. So take a look at that. A lot of improvements to T-SQL notebook functionality. There's some monitoring tools that are out there. And again, some of the IntelliSense and some of the other pieces. So just generally making it all easier to use. And the notebook version history is now generally available. So that one has been in preview just a few months, but already up to GA. AI functions upgraded under the hood. So now they're using GPT-4o Mini. So it's, in theory, smarter and then more efficient. So it consumes less CPU than it did once upon a time when they first went into preview. And they're now pre-installed in the Fabric 1.3 runtime. So if you're using that one, you don't have to do that install step at the beginning. You can just use them right away. You can call them in pure Python notebooks as well. Okay, real-time intelligence in a day workshops are now available. So if that's something that applies, check those out on the website. I didn't look at the schedule, but I know there was at least a couple of them that had cropped up on there virtually. You can now query Azure Monitor data directly from a Fabric KQL query set. So that's kind of exciting if you've got existing Azure resources and you want to pull some of that logging information into your Fabric environment. Copilot support now for KQL queries within your real-time dashboards. And the SQL operator in event streams. So if SQL is your favorite language, you can now do some of those transforms right in the event stream without having to put it out somewhere else first. And now Azure Data Factory. So the factory item in Fabric is now GA. And you can now link up those two. So ADF can be mounted to Fabric, to your tenant, from the Azure Data Factory interface. So you kind of can connect it from either end of those things, but you get visibility to your pipelines and just kind of bring your environments closer together from a functional standpoint. Okay, so I feel like I was talking really fast, but lots of stuff. You think summer's a slow time, but there's been a lot of stuff kind of sneaking out. So check out the blogs. Any questions about any of those? I've kind of dabbled with a lot of them, so feel free to throw questions out in the chat, ping me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk more about them. But for now, I will pass it over to Bryant.
Good.
With today's topic.
Yeah, let me get set up here. All right, bear with me. Wish you guys can see me. All right, let's share my screen. This stuff down. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do one thing, kind of a housekeeping thing real quick. Just because I'm going to show you everything I'm going to do today. I'm a little nervous because everything I'm going to do is live. Okay. It's always like, oh, please God. So I'm spinning up a couple things, which I'll talk about later. But for now, let's go through the kind of precursor bit here. Now, today's talk is, the title is "The Future Isn't Dashboards, It's Discoveries." So what I'm going to be showing today is a topic that hardly anybody talks about, and it's a difficult topic to cover, which is data architecture. And so I'm going to be talking about how data architecture powers the innovation cycle. Specifically, there's a lot of workflow involved in data science workflows, like the data science process and things that we do and how we integrate those things with our traditional BI types of environments. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I am, is this a bold statement or is it just like more hype? Like what's the deal? I'm going to be showing you real life stuff. I promise it's not hype. Let me introduce myself first a little bit. So I'm Bryant Avey. I'm president of Internuntius. We do architecture as a service. We do business intelligence. We do data science stuff. We do all kinds of different things in the data realm. Been in business for about 20 years. And in that process, I've kind of seen the evolution, if you will, of all the various, theories, ways to do data architecture, ways to handle and massage and integrate data on a ton of different platforms. And basically, we all know that these things there's a maturity cycle to all of them. Some things over time, improve and they stay with us, and some things kind of diminish and they kind of go away over time. And so we're in this kind of new world of AI being injected into the enterprise, right? So there's new thinking, new skill sets that we need. We need upskill. We need to look at how we're architecting our information, how we're doing our overall platforms so that we can support not only AI, but actually support the data and the enterprise, moving forward. So, in the past, so we've been doing data about the same way for 20, 30 years. I think Ralph Kimball, right, the star schema, inventor of the star schema, it's like that was 30 years ago. So the last 20 years or so, we've gone from, star schemas to data meshes to, enterprise data warehouses where we're doing relational stuff and then pulling out siloed data marts and things like that, right? So it's always been, hey, reports, KPIs, dashboards, that kind of thing. But in the age of AI, in this agentic world that we're trying to all move into, it's like that's not enough. It's not that these tools aren't good or that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that they're focused on reporting what's already happened. They're not focused on what's next, on what we want to move to in the future. They're not focused on necessarily predictive analytics and things like that. So what we want to do with discovery, I want to kind of introduce this concept or idea of discovery and how you integrate something and then you can start discovering and finding information. Just the act of pulling data together gives you a certain amount of power, right? It allows you to do those reports that you couldn't do before because you never had your systems connected. But there's another aspect of this where it's about what you don't already know, what you haven't asked yet or haven't even considered asking, and we want our data to start talking to us and gleam out of it what's there that we haven't even considered or thought about talking or thought about exploring. And so organizations that are really on the leading edge of this are, they're discovering new markets, they're discovering new customer behaviors and product models and things like that. They are doing this through a process of automation and through flexible architectures. Okay, and so that's what we're going to cover a little bit today. And I'm going to start off just talking about this idea, how we get insights. Okay, so I've got a quadrant here. Vertical quadrant is structured or known data, and then unstructured or unknown data. On the horizontal axis, we have predefined patterns or known patterns, and then emergent patterns, ones that we haven't discovered or can see yet. Everything, we're talking about this in the context of Fabric. So these quadrants break down like this. And in the bottom left quadrant, where we know our patterns, we got defined patterns, we know the rules, the business rules, we know the data structure. This is where we live. This is our Power BI. This is our data warehouse. This is our enterprise reporting systems. This is kind of what's normal or what we think about when we think about data architecture. And then from that, as you start applying some business rules, you say, well, I know I've got this data and I've got these rules, these requirements. Maybe it's sales quotas. Well, who is meeting or not meeting those sales quotas? You start being able to do some algorithms, some calculations, and start finding things that are outliers, things that are anomalies, things that don't comply with our business rules, right? Those are the outliers and anomalies. We know the pattern we're looking for. We just don't know who doesn't fit or who does fit that pattern, right? So now on the bottom right-hand side, we've got structured data. We know the data that we've got we know the tables and everything. It's all structured. We know the data that we're looking at, but we want to find out within that what's in there that we don't know about, that we haven't thought about looking at yet. That's pattern discovery. And on the top right is this pure exploratory world, right? We've either got unstructured data, maybe it's XML documents or JSON documents or other things like that, or maybe it's structured, but we just don't know and understand. Maybe it's not related and tied together very well. And then we have no idea what the patterns of the different things are. Now, a lot of times I've given talks internationally on this. We looked at things like graph databases to solve some of these problems, like Neo4j, Tiger Graph, things like that, to go and do graph data science to figure out and discover some of these unknown patterns and pull them in. And then I talked about how to pull those into Power BI. And so what you're going to see today is in many ways an evolution of some of those thought processes, those architectural design processes that we went through there. But we're going to be doing all this in Fabric. And so on the left, you'll see Power BI logo. That's kind of the world that we all know about. These are all things we can do easily in Power BI. On the right-hand side, where we've got unknown patterns, that's the data science, the Microsoft data science icon, in case you guys don't know what that means. That's data science. So on the right-hand side, it's data science. It's Fabric data science or data science of some sort. It doesn't have to necessarily even be necessarily Microsoft, but in this case, that's what we're talking about. So what we want to do, right, is to say, let's discover and do some things. So if we have a data science team, for example, in some organizations, they have data science teams. They go in and they're doing a lot of different things in Python and running algorithms and doing predictive modeling and that kind of thing. Pulling that out and saying, okay, now let's take what we've, the experiments and the hypotheses and the tests and things that we're seeing if there's anything of value, taking those and we bring them down into the pattern discovery, say, well, let's start applying that to our data. So we've got these things that might be interesting. Do they apply to anything that we currently have? There's this flow that goes down there. And then what you want to be able to do, but is very difficult because our architectures are so rigid and it's difficult to create this, is now that we've found application, we want to let the enterprise have that. We want everybody in our an organization to be able to access that new insight and that new information. So we want to inject that back into our BI models or back into our structured schema so that it can be, because everybody in the organization is standardized and using Power BI, right? Not everybody can go and do a Python or data, Cipher query or something like it, because we're not data scientists, right? Everybody in the organization knows how to click on a Power BI report and see what they're doing, right? Then, of course, from there, you can also, some of the outliers and things might be more complicated where you're doing things like, fraud detection, right? Those would happen down in either pattern discovery or a combination of insight pattern discovery, and then they want to make their way as indicators, as stored data to say, what are some of our anomalies or, outliers there. So that's the overall process. So, excuse me. So now in terms of architecture as a service, what I want to talk about here is that architecture as a service is kind of a little bit of a buzzword because it's not really necessarily a product, it's more of a process. And so what I'm going to show you today in real time is this process. We're going to walk through and do what I just described. We're going to walk through and do that in Fabric. So what we want to be able to do is create a reusable process, have a flexible architecture that allows us to do this so that we can absorb new facts, identify those new patterns, maybe create new metrics, inject those back into our data model, and then be able to, to use them, in Power BI. So we want to do that without having to completely blow up and redesign our entire, data model. We don't want another data mart. We don't want another, fact-centered thing with dimensions and have yet another Kimball model, right? Because we've already got too many of those already. We want an integrated thing that's one model that does all of this. So, so in a nutshell, this is basically what architecture as a service is. And it's powered by this flexible architecture. And today, what I'm going to show you is we're going to make this executable through TMDL. And how did you say it? Timdal? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Timdal? That's how we pronounce it? Okay. Yep. I never knew. I heard you say that. I was like, oh, Timdal. Okay. So I've been saying the letters, right? And we're going to, of course, use PySpark, and it's going to all be in Fabric. And I'll walk you through how this works. But let's compare just a little bit. I'm just going to pop these up here. Traditional kind of data warehousing versus architecture as a service. So we know in a traditional data warehouse, we've got those fixed schemas. A lot of things are hard coded with our measures. A lot of our calculations, if we store them in the data, if they're not like DAX measures, right, that are dynamic. If you're actually storing them in the data warehouse, they're hard coded. Stuff's kind of rigid. And to create new things, if we've got a new use case or a new business question that we want to answer that we need to explore, well, we have to kind of make copies of that and shell it out and make a whole nother model, make a whole brand new semantic model and create yet another one that's kind of organized so that we can report off of specifically whatever that use case is, right? So architecture as a service is not that. It is dynamic inserts. It is one integrated model, kind of like a silver layer on a traditional data warehouse where we have relational models at the silver layer, and then we create the star schema to do the reporting off in the gold layer. This is a gold layer data warehouse, okay, integrated data warehouse with everything in it. And so we have extensible metrics. It is relationship driven. Again, this is kind of born out of my experience and work with graph databases where relationships were the center of the world, and you had nodes and edges and everything was related, one hop to the next. You do graph traversals, you don't do queries. And so this is a relationship-driven architecture, and it allows us to basically break down those silos, integrate, pull everything together, and then process, work inside that feedback loop that we talked about. So we were just approved, I think 2 weeks ago or so. We just were accepted into Microsoft's ISV program. And so this architecture is kind of a preview of what's going to be powering the back end of one of our new product offerings. So I'm kind of giving you a sneak peek, kind of lift under the hood, showing you some of the things that we do and how they work, and things that you guys can do. This isn't about me trying to sell you something. I'm trying to show you what you can do, how it works, and how you can do this in your organization. If you're a consultant, I want you to look at this and help your clients do this type of thing. If you're an IT leader, tech leader, I want you to look at this and learn how to lead your organization. You lead the data charge, so it were, right? As it were. So that's what we're going to do. So let me walk through this a little bit. So first of all, and it's kind of probably a little bit hard to read, so I'll kind of call this out a little bit. But so this looks like a star schema, right? Just at first glance, like, oh, it's a star schema. I've seen this before. It's not. What it is at the very center, we have what we call our argument dimension, or arc dimension. And what this is a table of relationships. We're storing all the relationships between all the dimensions, excuse me, sorry, between all the dimensions and all the fact tables. And so then on the left over here, we've got all of our dimension tables. In this case, I kind of modeled this roughly out of like an SAP, some SAP tables and things. It's all kind of made, what I'm going to show you is all completely bogus, made up data. As you'll see, it's fictional, but it doesn't matter. This works with anything. And just so you guys know, just to kind of give some credence, we've implemented this at organizations that have literally billions of records, billions of rows. So the size doesn't really matter, but the architecture really empowers you to be able to use it. So we've got our dimensions on the left. On the right, then we have what? 4 different fact tables. You guys ever seen 4 fact tables in a star schema before? Anybody? You have? Okay, cool. There are ways to do it. You can do like in snowflake kind of things, right? So then what we're going to do is we're going to take a dynamic conformed date table, has all of our dates in it, a single table. And then on the far right over here is our metrics table. And what we've done is we've broke this out so that it's going to store all of our measure names and any other properties that we might want. In this case, it's pretty much just breaking out the actual metric names. So let's talk about some of the properties of this, kind of explain what's going on here. So first, I've highlighted a couple of them here. There's about 9 or so different dates. And so you'll notice that all the dates are connected. They're not active connections. There's like 9 inactive connections, okay? And so in our model, what we're going to do when we automate this is we're going to make sure that they're inactive, and then we're going to use calculation groups to be able to dynamically select what kind of a date you want to look at. So you could look at your data and say, show it to me by posting date, GL posting date. Show it to me by the invoice. Show me revenue by invoice date. Show me by, PO received date, whatever you want to do. You can just click those and do that automatically. Kind of similar to what I showed you guys a couple of months ago when we were doing the Hennepin, forecasting thing, where you can pick the different forecasting measures, kind of the same deal. Now, it's kind of hard to see. I'll highlight that again. But right underneath each fact, there are not multiple measures. There's no like 4 or 5 different columns for 4 or 5 different measures. We've got exactly 2 columns in every single fact table that control all the measures. One is the measure ID, which ties back to that ARC measures, and the other is just a simple value. Okay, so what this allows us to do in a data science environment is generate new insights and new information, either add additional fact tables or insert additional measures into our existing fact tables, and just simply insert rows. We don't have to change the architecture. And then we can just simply tie everything all back together in the existing model. I'll walk you through that here in a little bit. And then, so all of our relationships are stored in this arc dimension. And then we've got all the new measures are stored not as columns, but as rows in the fact tables. And then we can add new things as needed. Either add new measures, we just list them out and add them in there as insert a row, and then create the relationships between them. And then, excuse me, and then tie all that stuff together. So are there questions about that at all? Have you guys seen anything kind of similar or no? Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
To me, it's a little, like comparing it to Kimball, it's sort of like taking the metrics and turning it into a dimension, right?
Kind of, except that you're still really, basically what you're doing is just extending it. So it's kind of it's a hybrid, right? So it's not anything completely revolutionary, but what it is, it's a flexible architecture that allows us to, as you'll see here in a little bit, dynamically do all kinds of crazy things without having to go back and re-engineer the world. You also don't have to re-audit it, because anything that you've already fixed and figured out, if you add a new subsystem, hey, you're doing a greenfield, from scratch, you're doing a new data warehouse, and you start with sales, and then you want to add inventory, and then you want to add credit, and that kind of stuff. You can do these things one at a time without having to revalidate your entire model. And it's the network, like the network principle of, if you network one or two things together, you get some value. As soon as you start adding additional nodes, you start getting exponential value from that model. Well, this allows you to expand that to get that exponential analytics capability out of that model. So, yeah.
So the point, so like when you say dynamic inserts and it's relationship driven and extensible metrics, what you mean is it doesn't break because you don't have to add columns or take them away. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So, and which is really cool. So all of a sudden, if you add columns, so anything that you're adding to anything that's already existing to an existing fact, that's just available. So if you're doing reporting or anything like that, you can just simply, it's already there. It's like it's just already built in. If you do add a new, say, fact table, which we're going to do today, and tie that in, of course, it's a new table, but you can easily just add that. You don't have to do a lot of work, and you're not even actually adding any other data to anywhere else in the, you're reusing all the dimensions. In fact, you're reusing the same relationships in many cases, in most cases. So you're not even adding new data. So you can add a whole bunch of features and functionality in your data without even actually adding anything but a few facts, a few thousand facts or whatever it is. Yep.
So that, sorry, I
that's
apologize for, so then the separate fact tables is all essentially about just different data types, right? Is that correct? Or am I?
Well, the not data types, but more, it's more like, just like in anything where if you're storing, either quantity. So let's say you want to sell like quantity of sales, and you also want to store, the value of the sales, like the cost or the price. So you might have like quantity, cost, and price, three different things. Those we'll have in the metric, the ARC metric, we'll have three things in there. One for cost, one for revenue, one for like units or whatever it is. And we'll just have multiple rows in the fact table instead of having those in one in a column where everything else is null. You'll have, you won't have those null, all that empty null column space. It actually shrinks down the size of your tables and actually makes your footprint a lot smaller as well.
So then what is driving the 4 different fact tables? It's not data type. I mean,
It's the relationships. So what you've got is you've got your metric ID here. So you're saying I'm tying back to my relationships, which is uniting all of my various dimensions to the various fact tables. I'm tying that back to this ID, and then I'm turning around and I'm just, what do I call that measure? Do I want to see it in dollars? Do I want to see it in units? Do I want to see it in whatever? And you just tie back to that. Yeah, go ahead.
So the only time you're adding a new fact table is when you have a new relationship, a new data entity relationship.
New domain, yeah, a new, business thing.
Okay.
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like you would do in Kimball. It's not like we're rewiring the logic behind when you make a fact table or a dimension. What we are doing is saying that you don't have to have one fact table in a model. We got 4. and we're tying them all together. And by the way, you can insert and dynamically do a bunch of stuff in there as well. So, okay. Let's go on to this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to show you. And so we're going to basically go in and do some data science things. We're going to just run some algorithms and stuff like that in PySpark. You could do, machine learning. You could do Azure cognitive stuff. You could do AI stuff, any combination of that stuff. You could even link it to something like Neo4j or something like that and do your data science however you normally do it. What we're going to do is we're going to insert new facts, insert those relationships, and put that back in and show how that instantly works. So what we're going to basically do is take all the stuff on the right side of this screen, and we're going to do it, and then we're going to inject it back into our architecture. Okay. So generally, what's going to happen is this. Start up here with do our pattern discovery, exploring that stuff. So it's a cycle, right? So the kind of data science cycle is we do this, we explore stuff, we reinsert it into the model, then the architecture evolves over time. We figure out new measures. All those new measures and all those new things we're doing allows us to discover yet more patterns. So then we run more algorithms, and this matures and evolves over time, right? So what we're going to do, so insight and exploration is all done in PySpark, typically in Fabric. Pattern discovery, combination of PySpark and SQL, and whether it's Spark SQL or T-SQL, doesn't matter, unless you're trying to write data. And then for the architecture, then what we're going to do is we're going to take dynamically generated Timble. I got to get that right. So dynamically generated Timble, and we're going to walk through that. So real quick, does everybody? I'll probably flip through this stuff or just put it up here on the screen. You talked about does everybody know what Timble is or TMDL, like just generally, like what it is? No? Okay, I see some no's. So let me just kind of break that down really quick. Layman's terms kind of thing. Basically, if you imagine a Word document, it's all formatted and beautiful. If you open that up into a code editor, you see that it's all like XML and JSON and stuff back in there. It's the code behind what that Word document looks like to make it look pretty. Typical is that for a tabular model. So it's basically a descriptive language. It's hierarchical, meaning that it's got like nested stuff. It says, I've got a table. Inside this table, I have these columns. They have these properties. It's a text description, if you will, a definition language for a tabular model, for what a tabular Power BI model looks like. And so it's been available for, I don't know, many years, but you never had access to it until recently when they made the Timble tab available in Power BI. You had to use an external tool like, Tabular Editor or something like that, or one of SQL BI's tools, something. So that's the only way to access it. So it's been around for a while, but it lets you treat your modeling and your semantic models as code that can go through CI/CD. You could check them in and out of GitHub. You could have change control, for example, over a table or a set of tables versus a whole Power BI file, right? And so it gives you granularity and it lets you do all kinds of things. The other cool thing that it lets you do, because it's code, is code can write code, right? That's what AI is, right? AI, like everybody's doing vibe coding, right? Well, you can write Python scripts to actually write Timble code. And so if we're in there doing the architecture and we're doing the ETL and the ELT and we're generating date tables and all that kind of stuff, why should we stop there? Why shouldn't we just because like you guys have set up a date table before, right? Everybody's at Power BI has done a date table. Even the major butt, right? Like you have to do like 300, it's like 30 minutes to just like sort everything correctly, declare, do all that stuff. Well, what if I could just script all that and have it do it automatically while I'm creating the table? And all I got to do is copy paste it in. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So yeah, that's kind of the power of it. So I'm going to flip through this just real quickly too, in the interest of time. A couple of things to call out on here. You can now do RLS. I've not tried it, but supposedly you can do that. You can do, it's a little problematic, but you can also do, like you used to not be able to do calculated tables or calculated columns because it didn't have a way to do that. As long as you're doing it was the enhanced, or they call that EMF or whatever, the enhanced metadata format, which is if you create a brand new Power BI file, typically you're in that enhanced metadata style. As long as you're in that, then you can actually do calculated columns and all that kind of stuff as well. There's some improvements and things like that. I won't go into this in a lot of detail because you guys can look it up and read about it if you want to. A couple of kind of limited things or gotchas that I'm going to call out. The biggest thing is when you're using TMDL, very easy to screw up and wipe out your whole model or wipe out a whole table. Right? Like it's super easy to do this. And so, one of the limitations is like it's not so easy to go in. I've got a table with 100 columns in it. I want to change 3 of them. If you do that, you're going to wipe out all your other columns. You kind of have to do all or none. You have to redefine effectively the whole entire table. So you have to be careful. It's not a big deal because you can just right click and rescript it and get everything you need and then make your changes and then apply it in bulk or whatever. And it makes things a lot quicker and easier. But you do have to be careful because if you delete a column in the Timdal and you tell it to apply, it's gone. so you have to refresh and kind of go through and do all that. So just kind of a word of warning. And then there's a few things that you have to actually do in the UI, which we'll do here in a second as I dive into this. One thing is if you're going to use calculation groups, there's a setting, like when you first make a new calculation group, it pops up with this warning saying, you got to do this in exclusive measure mode. And so there's a toggle that you can set and some stuff like that, which I'll walk through here in just a second. So there's a couple of manual things that you really need to set it up so that your Timdal will work correctly. See, this is like rolling off my tongue now. I'm saying Timdal. So, was there a question? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
It's easy. It's great.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than TMDL. And I'll show you. So in your model, on this bit, in your model, if you want to use calculation groups, you have to click on the model, in the model tab, click on the semantic model specifically, and turn on this discourage implicit measures. That's that little setting that says, I'm not going to automatically make a sum or a sum or a count or whatever of different measures. So if you have a numeric field, you got to now write a measure for it. Okay. So for what we're going to be doing, I'm turning that on. And then the other thing is your dates is still kind of a manual process as far as I know, unless anybody knows any different. I haven't been able to figure out a way to around this, but you have to literally right click on your date and mark it as a date table. Go in, turn that on, set the field, and then make sure, verify that it's got the little checkbox that yes, this is indeed a date table. So you still got to do that. So let me flip over here now, and I'm going to do one little housekeeping thing. I'm live in Fabric. I'm going to click this and talk about it because this takes a couple minutes to spin up. Something I do, this is let me ask this, just how many, have people been doing Fabric and been doing PySpark and Python notebooks and Fabric at all? Kind of raise the hands. No, a couple, okay. 3, the rest of you know? Okay. So, there's all the wonderful things that Fabric can do in terms of the data flows and the pipelines and all that stuff that are low code, no code. This is not that. No, this is hardcore. Okay. So I'm going to show you some of the powerful things you can do, but it's very highly technical. One of those technicalities is what you're seeing here. And at the top of every Python Spark notebook, PySpark notebook, you have the ability. Now, here's part of the thing. I'm doing everything I'm going to show you on a huge F2, the babyest, smallest thing that there is, right? So everything I'm showing you today is on an F2. Again, proof you can do this even on an F2. But one of the ways that you can control whether you're on an F64 or higher, or whether you're on an F16 or whatever you might be, is you can absolutely control the amount of CU that you're consuming in your notebook. your data engineers have to be aware of this. If they do not know this, you guys need to research it, look it up, understand it. And what I'm doing here is I'm doing what's called a magic config, the percent config -F to force it. And I'm going through and I'm setting up different things. There's a couple of things here I want to call out while this is running. This can take 3 or 4 minutes, right? To maybe up to 5 minutes to start. But there's a couple of things here I want to call out. Look at what I'm doing here. And here there's Databricks. There is a whole bunch of native Databricks stuff, functions, libraries that are embedded into Fabric, into the Fabric PySpark environment. All you have to do is turn them on, and this is how you turn them on. This isn't like going in. You can also go in and add any Python library or R library or whatever else you want to do in your Fabric workspace environment. But these you don't have to do anything for other than just turn them on. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, here's how much memory. Here's how many executors I want. Here's how I'm controlling my CU. Here's how many cores. And then here's these different Spark SQL things, so fractions and different things. And I'm doing some serializers. I do a lot of XML stuff a lot of times. So I've got these jar packages, which are Java packages, and these Databricks Spark XML things, which prevent me from having to go in and use these fairly useless Python tools like with data frames. Data frames have limitations if you're dealing with large data to something about 2, 3, 4 meg of space per column in a data frame. So if you're doing large stuff like a big XML document, like recently we were pulling in all the presidential executive orders, okay? Some of those things are 8 meg. They're 8 meg XML files. So some of the blocks in there are way over 2 meg. Data frames can't handle them. Databricks just doesn't even sneak. So anyway, so this thing runs, it's been running 3 minutes. I'll show you at the top here. So I always put this at the top of all my notebooks. That's important to run this. Basically, if you just start running stuff, it's going to fire up your normal standard regular environment. But if you want anything special, like these special libraries and things, then then you can control that by firing this up. So I always just kind of do a little doc block up there. And then that lets all the engineers know if anybody else comes in and edits it besides me, then there it is. It finished. And at the bottom here, you'll see this warning. And this tells you how to set and configure those settings up above. Because here's the thing. If I'm on, say I'm on an F, it blocks everything out. So let's say I have 2 CU, okay? So because I'm on an F2, so I have 2 CU. But I've actually got 4 cores. If I say, oh, only use 2 cores in my notebook, guess what happens to those other 2 cores? Are they available to use somewhere else? No. They're wasted, thrown away, like completely, like don't do that. Because it's going to spin up the minimum Spark cluster it can, which is 4 cores and 28 gig of RAM. Okay, so it gives you this warning telling you this is what your configuration should be, because you're really an idiot if you don't use one of these like combination chunks. Okay, so that's what's going on. So that's in there. Now let's dive in. How am I doing on time, guys?
Okay, another 30 minutes?
Okay. Okay,
5 minutes? No, you got some time.
okay, good. Okay. All right. So let's go through. I'm gonna the demo data. This notebook generates the full demo data that we're going to look at, but I'm not going to run through all of that. Obviously, there's no need to. But what I am going to do is show you the date table. I'm going to do a couple of things. So first of all, I've written a date dimension in PySpark, and I'll just kind of briefly glimpse over this so you guys can see. So this is just a PySpark method of creating a date dimension table. Now, what I've done, since I'm in there creating the date table, I know exactly what I want, how I want to format it. Well, I might as well turn around and have it output and give me a, the Tyndall for it so that I can go and apply this without having to do all those 10,000 steps. That's going to take me 30 minutes. So at the very end of this, I get an output of Tyndall, which I will copy and paste here. in a sec. In fact, I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. I'm going to grab this. I'll use it here in a minute. Notebooks are a little bit cumbersome sometimes when you have to copy things that don't fit on one page. So bear with me as I scroll and copy. Okay, I'm going to shift, copy this guy. Okay. Okay, so I'm copying, this is the TIMDL that got generated. So I'm generating my date table. At the end of this, it automatically outputs the TIMDL that I need to make it an actual date table. Okay, but let's do this. I'm going to come over here, and I'm in my lake house. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new semantic model. Okay, it's going to take just a second. So I'm going to say arc demo model. And I'm going to pull into it everything in our arc. And let's show it. So I'm going to show you. I've got my arc dimension, my arc metric, as I showed on the screen earlier. I've got my my dates, my customer, my account, product vendor. Then I've got my fact tables, GL, inventory, PO, and sales. That's it. That's all that's in there right now. So I'm going to confirm that. I'm going to create a new semantic model. Let this spin up. And so we're starting like from scratch. No relationships, no nothing, right? And so we're going to get to that picture that I showed you like pretty easily. And so as this thing spins up, I'm going to so I've got Power BI up as well, which is a blank, empty model. Nothing here, no data, completely blank. So let's let this thing finish. Okay, there it is. So it's finished. Okay, I called it arc demo model. Okay, so I've got a completely empty model, semantic model with basically nothing in it, right? It's just like it's got the tables and the data obviously, but nothing else. I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to go into Power BI Desktop. And one of the features you talked about earlier as being new is that you can now do this live inside of Power BI Desktop. In fact, it's the only way to do TIMDL against this is in Power BI Desktop using this new feature. So I'm going to launch this. I'm going to say, okay, here's my new model, Arc Demo model. It's the one I just created. Okay. And now you have the option to connect to it and write a report on it, or you do the drop down and you say edit. When I say edit, it's going and doing a live connection now to that semantic model in Fabric. My report icon and things go away because I can't do reports in here. I'm now editing the semantic model as if I'm doing it online. But I have a DAX tab and I have a TIMDL tab as well. Okay, so I've got no calculation groups, no measures, no relationship, zeros everywhere. Okay, and I got 12 tables. Okay, so let's go over to the TIMDL tab, and I copied that TIMDL that the date table generated. So let's paste that in. I pasted it in. I didn't copy it. I thought I did. I know I did, but let's just do it again. Copy. Paste. Okay. So I paste that in. I'll show you what this looks like just for those of you that haven't really seen TIMDL. It says create or replace. It's kind of a command, and then it's got tables, and this is dim dates. Now it lists out each column. Okay, it's just listing out and typing in the properties, kind of like as if you were defining it in SQL. Hey, declare this table and make it an integer, all that kind of stuff, kind of normal stuff. It also can create hierarchy. So I've got a hierarchy called calendar. I've got partitions, which I won't go into great detail about, but I'm also setting sort orders. Those that well, it doesn't matter. I'll show you here live after I hit apply. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And what this is doing now is it's taking this as okay, it applied to the model. So now if I come over to my date table, oh, you know what? I'm going to have to do this one more time because guess what? I forgot to do. Oh, it is marked as a date table. Okay, it maybe did that for me automatically. I thought I was going to have to do that manually. I forgot to do that step, but so it automatically did that. It looks like, and it actually applied that as well. And so if I go in and look at some of these, I'll go into the model itself. I'll go into the table and I'll show you real quick some of the, like, let's look at, short plant, month short, for example, and the advanced. So it's short, it's sorting by month num. So it's did all this automatically for me. So I generated it and I generated the Tyndall. Now I don't have to go in and do my sort. My date table is like set up. It's a date table. It's got all the sorts. So it's, if I drag it out into a report, I'm going to get January, February, March, not April, and whatever, not alphabetical, that kind of thing. So that's all set up, but I still don't have any relationships. So let me flip back over here. So that's the date piece, which I literally just copied from before when I created this. Now this I'm going to actually run interactively. This I've created, it's a dynamic Tyndall generator. What this guy does, so first of all, I've created an architecture. So think back here with me. I've created an architecture and I've got standards. I've got naming conventions and I've got a standard way of architecting this with my dimensions and my fact tables and all this. So because of that, I'm able to apply rules, logical rules that can go and search and interrogate the database and pull out columns that might be related based off of naming conventions and standards and things like that. So I literally should be able to write something that can go discover dynamically all of my tables and automatically generate all these relationships. Let me kick this off. Should have done that while I was talking. It doesn't take that long though. It's about a 200-line code, Python script-ish to do this. And it is generating dynamically based on what's out there. And later, here in a minute, when we go and do some new stuff, I'm going to run it again and it'll regen with the new stuff that we created because it is dynamic. We'll just rerun the same exact script again. So, so what this is going to do is just dump out again. What it's doing is it's going through looking at, okay, I've got these arc dimension relationships between my dimensions and between my fact tables. I've got relationship between my fact and my arc metrics and things like that. And it's going through and discovering all of those and then dynamically generating the Tyndall so that I can go and apply that. So see, it's 50 seconds. Let's see here. I don't remember how long it takes, so I should have timed it, but anyway, it should be good. It doesn't take that long. So we'll let this finish and I'll copy paste this back in and then we'll see all that in there. There we go. Okay. So what I've got is, again, I'm going to do some scrolling here because it's quite long. Copy. Flip back over to my model. Go back into here. I can do this as a new tab or copy replace what I've got in there. I'll just do it as a new tab. And paste this in. Again, I got no problems, no errors down below, so that's a good sign. I'm going to hit apply. And it is going through systematically now and applying all of those relationships that I said I wanted. Oh, you know why? I hit an error because I forgot to do one thing. Hold on. I got to come into here. I'm doing, we go to model. That one step, manual step I told you guys about. I didn't do that. Discourage implicit measures because I'm trying to create, what's happening is I'm trying to create calculation groups and I don't have that option turned on. It won't do it. So I'm turning that on. It's now on. Now let me just try this again. It worked. It says apply complete. It says, okay, you've got one or more calculated object things that need to be recalculated, and it's showing some things. So do a refresh. So you hit refresh now and bam, you're done. So now what I've got, look, I've got two calculation groups. Here, let me go into the actual model and show you these. So I'll do this one. I'll show you the dates. So I've got a calculation group now with each of the different date types. GL post, here I can do this. It's probably a little bit easier. GL posting, GL effective date, the PO order date, the ship date, the receive date, the sales order date, sales invoice date, all of those. And then I've also got all of my metrics, and I've got 8 different metrics: quantity, revenue, cost, debits, credits, unit cost value, etc. Okay, and the inventory movement quantity. Okay, so these are from those different fact tables. Okay, so I've now got calculations or calculators out here that basically do all of that. for me automatically. Let's zoom out here a little bit. Let's shrink this.
I'm gonna question for you.
Please.
So are we looking at the original tables that you were showing us that had like what I would call like the base model? I think you mentioned one of the tables had the relationships in it. Do I understand correctly that you're essentially running a notebook that's querying that table and then doing some other logic to produce the Tyndall?
Correct.
And then-
Yes.
So like, one of the, just like the low hanging fruit benefits that you're kind of touting is, like, I see all the relationships between all the tables now.
Yep.
And like, they're just imported for me.
Essentially,
So I don't have to go-
dynamically generated and exactly.
I don't have to go clicking around and do all that work forever.
Saved you 2 hours of work, right?
And I just want to make sure I understood
Yeah.
kind of the whole.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, exactly. So, and this is, frankly, this is kind of like this is just automating, kind of automation, if you will, kind of that process, that data as architecture, where it's the process to just do the data piece. So you're doing the ETL, ELT stuff. Well, take it one step further, have it auto-generate 80% or 90% of your actual semantic models as well.
Well, it's like
using
you're making like an abstract version of all of the Power BI models you might need in the future. And then you can use that to feed.
Like that script I just ran to dynamically generate that, I could run that on, as long as I'm following the same naming conventions, because those rules apply.
Yeah.
As long as my team is following that naming convention with whatever they're creating, I can run that script on their model and it'll auto-generate all the Tyndall and do all that for them as well.
Yep.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Yep. So it kind of brings it's better than just like doing DAX or doing a Power Query and copying it and doing it in Excel. And hey, I got the same model in Excel, or hey, I've got it now between different models. The difference is that I don't have to copy this data anywhere either. I mean, it's a universal reusable data. If I need to have a different schema over that same data for whatever reason, because I want to isolate something for some reason, I'm still using the same dimensions, everything, right? And I just carve out what I need for maybe a use case or for a report or whatever. If you don't need the 10,000 unit, entity table or whatever, right? Yeah. So all this is in place. So now if I want to, I can go and of course, Power BI, another session, and just do launch this again. I'm doing the same thing I just did, selecting the same model, but I'm going to do connect this time instead of edit. Now I'm making a report out of what I just did. And so now you can see I've got all my data over here and stuff like that. So I can come in and I can do a date dimension. I've got my date hierarchies, all that kind of stuff. If I want to pull out and do let's say I'll just do full date, drag that out, turn it into a slicer. It knows it's a date. Date slicer works, but this is so ugly that hold on. I can't stand it. We need to do something that's at least, moderately, okay. Don't need the filters on. Okay, so now I've got a date slicer. I can pull out and say, okay, let's go pull out like these metrics. Okay, let's turn that into a slicer. So now I've got, these are the different kinds of things I can see. Let's do the same thing for our dates. Let's pull out our dates, make that a slicer. Okay, now let's just make like a table really quick and just show like, I'm going to pop in a measure I made, which is metric. And all it is I can show it to you in the other model, but all it is blank. It's just a measure that it's literal. It's, measure equals blank, open, close paren. That's the measure. The reason is because when you do calculation groups, like you don't have to do any calculations, you do them all in the calculation group, not in the measure itself, but you need to measure a placeholder in order to display anything on the screen. Okay, so that's my kind of dummy measure, if you will. And then let's just say like, I don't know, let's just do like customer name, and let's pick like, let's see, oh, it's thinking. Okay, there we go. So we got instant data, right? So all those relationships in place, intact, all working live. It's a direct link connection. So no importing, none of that stuff. It's all live. I can do, put the dates. Let's go back into my date table here real quick. And I'm just going to do like my hierarchy, probably this one up here, the calendar. Let's do this and drop my calendar hierarchy on column. So now I've got, we'll just go down to, we've got Q1, now we've got January, February, whatever, right? We've got data. So let's look, now I'm looking at GL effective data. If I want to look at the same data, but I want to look at it by the sales order dates, it's now reprocessing all of those dates dynamically by revenue or by cost, by the ship date, by the GL effective date, you know, by the invoice date, whatever, right? It's dynamically calculating all of this on the fly just by dragging and dropping those out from using that architecture. So now let's go to the next step, okay? This was the easy part. So now what we want to do, right, is do some cool stuff and do some data sciencey things and do some exploration. So we'll start with this. And this is just let's go and look at just do some kind of just in the notebook itself, just some visualization things to kind of, you know, simulating, hey, we're data scientists, we're kind of exploring our data. What can we do? What are interesting things to kind of look at? And so running some Python stuff in here, and we'll let this finish here, and we'll look at it, and then we'll take the next step after this. As soon as this thing finishes, this never goes fast when you're, you know, like sitting here watching it, right? When you're doing a demo, it's always slower than you remember it. So anyway, we'll let this finish. And so this is a 64-line Python, right, script that is basically producing it's clustering. Okay, so I'm like, well, let's go look at clusters of like customers, purchase orders, vendors, right? What groups or what baskets, right? It's basket analysis kind of thing, right? So let's go run some of that, do that in Python. So I've got some visuals, look nice. I haven't really done anything to the data, but it's like, you know, I think there's something here that might be interesting. Let's see if we can go ahead and cluster some stuff and make a new fact table, inject that into our model, and then have that be available as well, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to, let's see here. So what we're going to do is I have dummy data. So like I literally have same numbers, accounts of everything. So first thing I'm going to do is do this. I wrote a little script to just basically insert some bias and some weighting based on the values and stuff in the table, because otherwise it's like everything comes out flat and let's make a demo. So this is just I'm doing this simply because I've made some really bad demo data that's very static. So not very variant, I guess is what it is. So this is just a script that runs to do that. And then what I'm going to do here is on the next step here, I'm going to actually run this script, which is going to literally take the variation that I just did, but it's going to take the data, run it through the machine learning algorithm, do the clustering. So I'm running, let me show you what I'm running here. So I'm running sklearn. I'm doing some SQL and stuff in here. I'm using pandas. These are the libraries I'm using. So I'm which is a science kit, learning science kit, I think is what it's called, but sklearn. And so it's pulling these things in, and so it's doing the clustering and the grouping and stuff like that. So I'm doing some, not really machine learning because I'm not training a model, but I'm doing kind of data science, algorithmic processing to extract and find patterns, right? Clusters in this case. And so, so I'm going to run this. And the other job finished, by the way. I'm going to run this, and what it's going to do is it's going to do what we talked about. It's going to go and it's going to insert a new arc metric with this new cluster measure, and it's going to then create a new fact table that is going to have it's going to go back and look in our model and look at all those relationships and those combinations, find the patterns, do the clustering, tie them all back to our existing arc dimension relation table, which ties it back to the whole rest of the model. So now I've got a separate fact table standalone that now has the power of my entire model for customers, vendors, all the dimensions that are slice and dice by, and anything else I want to look at, just by basically adding this, putting this in there. So, okay, so here we go. So it says, okay, I inserted 3,125 rows into ArcFact Discovery, new fact table. I inserted 0 records into Arc Dimension. Is something wrong? What do you guys think? Why didn't it insert any rows? Thank you. Exactly. It's already there. You don't have to add new data to expand your model. All those combinations of vendors, customers, products existed somewhere related to some fact table somewhere with the combination of the dimensions and the facts. So therefore, that record already exists. I don't have to do anything, just tie it to the one that was already there. If there were ones that it discovered that didn't exist, it would have inserted. Okay? So, I've got this here just to show you, select splat from Arc metric, just to show you that we now have 9, I think we should have. Yeah, so we now have this guy, number 9, vendor customer product cluster. Okay, it's a new measure that got implemented there. And so, so what we can do with that now, that's in the model. In fact, if I come back over here, let's do this. Let's go back to the top. Let's put this into our, let's go back up here where I did the dynamic thing up here. What is it, this guy? Okay, dynamic TMDL generator. Hit play on this again, because now I got new tables to discover. So let's rerun this. Let it come back through and regenerate the TMDL for us. It's actually fast because it's warmed up now. So, okay, finished.
Tables did you just make?
3 seconds. I created a table called fact discovery.
Oh, okay, from
Yes.
grouping.
Yep.
The
So,
only stuff that was added was the new fact table
yep,
and then a new.
one
record,
row to
and
the
then a
correct.
New record into your metrics table.
You got
in order to be able to see the data.
To see it, exactly. So then what this does, again, I'm just running the same thing I ran previously, but again, so now I have all the new relationships and everything, tile the stuff together. So I'm going to copy this. Let's go back to our symbol. We'll do another one. Let's do it again here. Paste this in. So before I hit apply, let's show, because first of all, there's no, there's only the 4 fact tables down here. Okay, and if we look at it, right, it's just, that's not there. So, so let's apply this. And what have I got here? Resolve paths, serializing, discovery, or arc dimension referred to. Maybe I have to, you know what? I might need to do, okay, this is a fabric thing that happens sometimes, right? So sometimes we have to go into fabric itself and go into the lake house and refresh our metadata. Sometimes our metadata takes a while, like it doesn't happen instantly, right? So, so we click up here. I'm just going to say refresh to refresh all the metadata. Okay, good. Now let's go back again. Let's try it again. And oh yeah, right spot. Okay, and let's just see if that's enough. I'm gonna have to come over here and do refresh real quick and see where we're at here with this. Okay, yeah, like our date table vanished here, but like I said, see, sometimes that stuff can happen. Our date table vanished. Okay, let's do this. Let's try it again. Why is it not? It is not. I might have to run my date table again. I'm going to just apply this again real quick. And I'm going to come back and try to apply this again, see if it's, you know what, dang it. Wow. Okay, let's see.
What you get for doing a lot, right?
I know, right? Exactly.
Everyone else is recording videos.
Exactly. So let's see, I'm gonna, oh, okay, that's all okay for there. Let me do this. And then I'm gonna just make sure that I'm gonna make sure that I got it all copied correctly. Okay, I got create replies. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna scroll down and just make sure I got it all, because it is possible I flipped up on didn't get all of it or something strange. No, I got it all. Okay, so I got it all. So let's do this again. Let's do One more time. Work. Yeah. Discover arc refers to an object which cannot be found. Oh, you know what? I wonder here. I bet you this is an easy fix. Let's go back to here. Let's do this. I know what's going on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into data transform. I bet you all of our when I flipped up there or whatever and it lost our table. Yeah, we don't have all of our tables selected anymore. It lost our date table. I'm just going to click this and pick everything and say okay. We pull it back in again into our as a table into our model. Now let's run this. Now it worked. And it says refresh. Okay, now. Okay, so now we've got this. So now we've got this. So now we've got, if I zoom in here, we find here we go, the tables. So now we have our fact discovery right here, and it is correctly tied to our arc metric, and it's correctly tied to our arc dimension, which is our relationship table. Okay, so now that that's there, I can of course go back into our report. I can hit refresh, and then we should see our fact discovery over here now as well. So with those new values, okay? So rather than doing this piece of it in Power BI, because I'd have to write some measures and some different things to try to show some of the stuff that's in there. We know the data's in there. We know it came through the model, okay? Our Tyndall wrote, after I futzed with it and re-added the tables back in that I screwed up, but it came through and all the data's there and it's available to our reports to use instantly for whatever we want to do. So let's go through and do, see, scroll down here, go down to my things that I can show you guys. Let's visualize some of this data. So I'm going to say, I'm going to look at some of these clusters and view them by, view the sales clusters by vendor, and just look at some of that visual. I'm going to do it here in Python, in PySpark, just to show, we all know how to do stuff in Power BI. It's not that interesting. So I thought this might be a little bit more fun and interesting. Plus it's less setup. It's like if we do it all, makes for a better demo. So we've got some cool visuals and stuff right inside of our notebook. Again, some of the cool things you could do with the PySpark notebook inside of Fabric. And so it's showing our various clusters by a combination of the total sales in our different clusters by different vendor customer group clusters. Okay, and I've got a table down below.
Are you just querying the actual lake house for that, or are you clearing the semantic model?
No, I'm just querying. I could reproduce this. Well, if you had that kind of a chart, which we don't, but
Yeah.
if I could do this in Power BI, it's just that, yeah, exactly. I'd have to create probably a couple of measures and stuff to actually do it. In here, I could just code it and then display it. But I'm literally just doing Spark SQL queries and then displaying it. Yep.
Yeah, and maybe just for everybody's knowledge, you can, if you get good at DAX and you like writing queries against semantic models, you can do some of the same stuff in your notebook and write queries directly against a semantic model.
Cool.
Using the SemPy notebook, package, which is also now by default installed into Fabric Cluster. So you can start writing DAX directly against semantic models that live in Fabric, the same way that you are currently doing it by writing SQL against your lakehouse.
Yeah,
So there's fun ways to.
that's neat. Okay, I'll have to explore that.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff you can do there just because of the sort of optimization of doing large scale analytical queries against a semantic model versus against a SQL database. Yeah, real cool stuff there that you could even like expand upon what you're doing here. But,
Yeah. And then, because it'd be kind of cool to, instead of having to copy paste the Tyndall, like actually inject it right into the semantic model without having to copy paste. Could you do that with it?
Yes.
Ooh, next step, next on the to-do list. Okay, so
Performance difference with that? Is there performance?
You might see performance differences, and it's mostly down to the difference between the SQL engine, the engine that is writing against a lakehouse or a data warehouse, and the semantic model engine. So, writing queries against a semantic model that's all sort of in memory and uses a different storage engine. So yes, you would likely see differences. Now, which one's going to be better for different scenarios is hard to like predict. But yeah, it'd be slightly different.
It's super, super cool. Okay, so while we're talking, I clicked this next one, which is just a starburst, and it's a vendor region product type of a thing, just to give you a kind of another flavor or view. I got to scroll up because I deleted a table on the bottom of it. But you can do things like this as well. It's got hoverovers, things like that. So you can take the data, right? So you've got, I guess, I'm kind of done with what I wanted to show you guys, which is that you can, if you create a flexible architecture that allows you to extend it, and number one, you don't have the data silos. We don't have 30 different, data marts with a fact at the center, surrounded by a bunch of dimensions that we have to copy and reproduce every time to do the next best thing. Everything's right there. So I can literally look at inventory, sale, everything, all in one model. It's a true analytics model that's right in Power BI, and I can slice and dice and do everything in one report. Can add row level security and whatever else I need to, because I've got all the GL information. So if I want to secure this by, GL department and by person, you can just add the row level security in there, control it. So everything all in one. It's that utopia, right? It's that silver bullet, that utopic, like, I want one spot for all of my data. Well, Fabric is that, but then you need an architecture that's flexible to pull that all together so that you can not only do analytics on it, in whether you're doing it in Python or whether you're doing it in Power BI or any other tool, Excel, that's all there. And then the last point is that you've got this whole life cycle of basically taking from discovery and data science things and AI and machine learning and whatever else you might want to do to go through that whole life cycle from one step to the next, figure things out, let your data scientists figure things out, iterate through it. When something is valuable, it makes it super easy to just simply inject it right into the semantic data model and instantly make it available to the entire enterprise without having to write an app or go through a 3-month development process to now get that cool thing out to the public. It's just one more iteration. So yeah, that I think I'm done. What do you guys think?
That's a lot.
Okay. I hope it wouldn't be too much. So. Cool. Stop sharing.
Any questions from the folks online who aren't in the room with us? Can't see if your hand's raised. Yeah.
Is the data model available online for us to kind of look at and kind of get insights from, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in the process actually right now, because we just kind of literally, a lot of this is stuff we've been doing for years for our clients, because we make like custom bespoke data warehouses and architecture as a service types of things. And so, but I'm actually in the process of doing a bunch of like Medium posts, things like that around this. So the best way to connect with me on LinkedIn, just Bryant Avey on LinkedIn, or my website, internuntius.com. I'm happy to connect with anybody and everybody on LinkedIn, whatever, and then just kind of follow that, because I'll be making posts when I do it on LinkedIn and things like that as I publish those and stuff. So yeah, because it's not like this stuff here. It's very generic,
Right.
And so we take it obviously for the product, and what I'm doing on the back end for our stuff. What we're doing is, as you can imagine, a little bit more complex than that. But this type of thing, I want to encourage everybody to try and do, because it is. I feel like just personally that we're kind of on this precipice of this, like on the verge. We have to change our architecture. We have to change how we're doing things, right? Because it's what we've been doing in the past isn't flexible enough, and it doesn't facilitate this bringing our data to the enterprise level in light of AI, machine learning, data science, and this workflow that we're doing. Everything's getting more and more siloed and further away from where we want it to be. And more tools and everything else aren't the answer. It's just having good, solid data architecture and doing this right with the existing tools that we have, and you can do it and make your whole world better. I mean, that's kind of like my soapbox. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of information, so I was just trying to see if there was a place where we can. kind of-
Yeah, I will have a bunch of it on our website and
Okay.
I plan to do a lot of articles. I don't have anything out there right now because I literally, this is the first time I've ever shown this to anybody.
Oh, okay.
So seriously, so you guys, this is the first time, so. So, yeah, so it doesn't exist yet except up here, well, on our own system, yeah, so. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Actually, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about is, it's great when data scientists and engineers get together and have this cool discussion. So I was just curious, what is the business lift
yeah.
of this?
Yeah, so let me tell you one example from, I can share this because they're public and everything we do with them is public. I did a lot of work for Hennepin County. We took, during COVID, they had over 100 different data sources. We actually used Neo4j for this. We did it in graph data science because Power didn't exist back then. But what we did was we took 100 different data sources from APIs, from traffic. We were monitoring everything from like revolution, how fast does the different areas around Hennepin County come back up to speed after COVID? Parks, how many people are in the parks? So we had sensors and things on cameras that we have in parks, counting people and doing counts and all kinds. So we have like over 100 different APIs, traffic systems, different things like that, pulling a bunch of data in. We pulled it all into kind of like a knowledge base, if you will, a knowledge graph. And we pulled all this stuff together through graph data science types of things, and then made it available. And what you can see, it's probably, I think it's still out there. If you go to Hennepin County's website and do a search for COVID dashboard, I think it's still out there. There's a Power BI report.
That was you?
Yeah, we did all that. We made, me and Christian and my team, yeah, exactly. We actually did all we didn't build the report, we let them build that, but we did all the data. And we actually helped them license Neo4j in order to do that thing that they needed to do. Yeah, yeah, super fun. So then I can say that because it's public, it's kind of public knowledge. If you query, you'd see the proposals and the documents, all that stuff publicly that we've done all that. So, but yeah, so that's one example. And so it allowed all kinds of public information to be shared. But from a business perspective, in terms of profitability lift, ROI, things like that, we're working with a client right now where we're looking at we're using AI and things in a series of meetings, and we're analyzing transcripts from several of these different requirements meetings and things, and we're pulling out things like, hey, I spend 2 hours doing this. You add all this stuff together from all these different conversations, and it turns out that they're spending hundreds of hours a month, different people manually piecing things together because it's not integrated and stuff like that. And so we're seeing, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in ROI, both in terms of like type 1, type 2. Are you familiar with ROI types? Type 1, type 2, and type 3 ROI? Like hard costs, like money in the bank is type 1. Type 2 is like efficiencies. Like instead of manually piecing together things for hours, I now can focus on analyzing and improving my business. I'm not going to fire that person, so I don't get any hard savings from that because that person is just now doing other things. So it's type 2 ROI. But then that enables type 3 ROI because now that I'm focused on improving my business and doing analytics, I now can make things like better sales decisions. I can do basket analysis and things like that and look at things that we can build for them from an analytics perspective and then increase the profit uplift. Right, and things like that. And you get a lot of lift and profit and margin and things like that based on people being able to focus on analytics instead of pulling reports and data together. So that's where the payoff is, to the tune of like tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on the organization. Yeah.
Great answer. I was just curious for the same, and I heard about your idea of being able to democratize the ability to analyze your data, discover your data.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting approach. Then it's a question, how do you take that source code that you're putting in there? Is it something that you can collaborate with others in the team to?
Yeah, a lot of it's reusable. That's kind of the cool, Tyndall is one of the cool things. It's kind of like if you create a DAX measure, like a calculated date table, you can give that DAX script to anybody that needs a date table, they could just paste it in and they got an instant date table. And then of course they still have to do all the, they still have to do all the wiring up of the, making a, the sorts and all that kind of stuff. But it's a similar thing. And that's why Tyndall's cool that way, because it lets you automate all of those pieces. And then all I did was the demo I gave a couple of several months ago with the forecasting thing we did for Hennepin as well. That was all done in C# Azure Functions. This is all done in Python. So it's just PySpark in a notebook. And then you can schedule these, just have them automatically run every night. And then if you've got data scientists off on another team doing something, you can then take those things and just pull it out, modify it so it fits in with your rules, and or generates structure that's standards compliant. And then you just rerun everything against it, and it instantly pulls in things that are valuable, because there's a lot of throwaway. Data sciences, there's a lot of throwaway, like, because you're doing what ifs and scenarios, and 90% of it's like worthless, time consuming junk that isn't really worth anything, or maybe kind of interesting, but not usable by anybody. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of it, right? So, but there are then those gems that can give us a competitive advantage. And so those are the things that we want to have a method to incorporate back into our cycle and make it instantly, as quickly as possible, with as few barriers and as fast as possible to get it out into the organization. They can start acting on it and make decisions. That's right, kind of like the BI mantra, right? Data at your fingertips and decision support, all those buzzwords, right? This is how you do it. So, yep.
Yeah, and that is a larger question maybe for another time. I'm curious, at an enterprise implementation, what would the SDLC look like?
That is completely based, that's unique for in each organization. So it might not be SDLC. It might be like we do these in Scrum. Scrum, it can be waterfall, it can be, but generally it's the makeup of your team. So like one company we're working with is a very small team, and it's a couple of engineers and that's it. And so are we doing the fancy, analytics and stuff? Not yet. Will we be? It's a maturity, right? It's a maturity cycle. So you got to crawl, and then you got to walk, and then you can run, right? And so I said, the whole presentation was like dashboards are dead, and we're looking for looking to do more. But the reality is that there's a huge, the majority of companies out there, all the manufacturing distribution companies out there, they're lucky if they can pull their 3 ERP systems that they use together to get reports off of. They can't even do that yet. So they're still trying to get to that first step. So you got to obviously get there first, and it's a maturity thing. And so the development cycle kind of depends on where you're at with that maturity cycle and the environment and the people and the skills that you've got and things like that. So that's not really easy question to answer. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Good.
So the recording to the presentation, is that sent out to the group, or?
I can. Yeah, I can certainly do that. Yep. Yeah. Because there's some good stuff. You can look at that architecture and then kind of try to recreate. Because I literally just, I didn't show you the data, but it's kind of funny. I had it generate. I had AI help me generate the data for the data. So it's like I have like green dots. I have wands. I have lightsabers. I have Gotham City. I got it's crazy data. So yeah.
Your initial presentation too will be a part of that. Send it out.
We could. I don't know.
You could do it in SharePoint. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. We could.
Sadly, we work with a lot of SharePoint stuff.
I think we could. We're still trying to figure out where everything's going to live, but the recording will end up on YouTube. We do have.
Yeah, I'm the bottleneck. I have the last 2 meetings. I've not posted them to YouTube. I've downloaded them. Now this is number 3. Now this is number 3. Maybe since this one's me, maybe I'll finally get my act together and do it. But yeah.
Volunteer resource.
Right.
That's good job. We appreciate you.
Okay, I just have a couple of quick slides here. So for anybody who wants to join us, we're going to pop down to Woodland Hill Brewing again. There we go. You can see it a little bit, but if you drop that into your phone, it's just a mile or 2 down the road here. So If anybody wants to come join us, anybody online who's nearby, feel free to come on down. A couple other things coming up. So our next meeting will be back here on September 8th, 1 to 3 p.m. Room availability pending, if we can do that. But keep an eye on social media. Yeah, if we need to shift gears, we'll try to get that out as soon as we can. But Monday, September 8th, a couple other events that are coming up, and it seems crazy that we're talking September already, but it'll be here before we know it. But M365 Twin Cities. So this used to be, I think, like SharePoint Community Days or something.
Saturday.
Yeah, it's had a couple of names, but it's on Friday now, so it doesn't take up your weekend. But Friday, September 19th, all day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Hennepin Tech up in Brooklyn Park, but a whole day of trainings. So if you've ever done kind of these local conferences, they get 5-6 rooms going. They've got speakers going all day long. So definitely look into that one. And then SQL Saturday coming up September 27th. That one's at St. Paul College. That one is on a Saturday. And then this year we're looking to possibly be doing 2 pre-cons on Friday, 9/26, where we're going to do all day on Fabric. I think right now, if everything aligns, we're going to have 2 different sessions that day. So we're going to have more of an intro level Fabric, kind of end to end. And then there's going to be another one that's going to be more advanced Fabric topics. So more about real-time, machine learning, AI, all that fun stuff. So keep those in mind. Put them on your radar if you'd like to continue learning and come out and support the community. And then for our group, we've got a link to a survey here. So if you're willing to give that code a scan, let us know about the speaker, the venue, the event. There's a couple questions on there. By all means, if you are interested in coming to present, there's a spot you can let us know that as well. We're always looking for speakers. So it doesn't even have to be the full hour if you don't want to. If you just have a 20-minute case study or something, those are great as well. So throw your name in the ring. Come on out. Always love having more speakers in the mix. And then finally, we've got a LinkedIn group that's out there. We vary in activity, but we try to at least get the meetings posted and those kinds of things out there. So check that out as well.
So again, you just kind of ripped through a bunch of stuff there. Are you sending something out afterwards so that we can?
Yeah, but like the events I usually do post on social media. So those will pop up. So if you follow any of us on LinkedIn, we'll put them up there. I'll figure out how we can post this. Yeah, we'll find a spot.
We don't have a great place to post stuff at the moment, so yeah, we're looking at some of that. There are some options directly tied to like Microsoft's user group community. The Power BI and Fabric world has a community site. We do have the Work Out Loud site that many of you may be registered with, is where you may have gotten the invite for this. And then we're talking about other options as well. So yeah, we'll do our best.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thanks everybody online. I'm gonna stop the recording in the meeting now. If you are local, feel free to meet us at Brewery. Otherwise, see you next time.
Thank you.
Yes. Kind of your way. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
The script generates the table.
Both are coming.
Okay.